coming. This is a great turnout. My name is Lisa Gravel, and I am not a Ward 8 resident, but I do deliver mail in Ward 8, and I've delivered mail to some of the people in this room. It's very nice to see you again. I like to get involved in local politics, and I look for people that I can support, and these two guys, like, blew me away. And I think that you guys are going to be in amazing hands. They're starting running. I mean, they're not even sworn in yet, and they have this meeting that they're, going to take questions and give you answers and things like that. So with no further ado, I will introduce John Cataldo, who is your alderman-at-large, not at-large, elect. Your alderman-elect. All right, there we go. And Jimmy Lehoux, who is your school board-elect member. So they'll take questions from you, and I'm going to go around with a sign-up sheet. So if you guys wouldn't mind just signing and letting them know who you are, and I'm sure they're going to be in touch with you, and have a good time.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. This is a great turnout, really. Like Lisa, like we might have mentioned a minute ago, we also want to wave hi to everybody watching on Facebook. So we were able to work this out with the help of Dan Pinard and Brian from IT here at Manchester School of Technology, and Norman and Bork, thank you. And to get this live on Facebook. So there, if anybody who couldn't physically be here tonight, they're able to watch this happening with about a 30-second delay, and actually comment. Lisa's going to be back there looking at the comments, so if there's questions that come in from Facebook, we can answer those. And then just as a note, though, just to those who are watching on Facebook, that there's a 30-second delay. So if we're talking about something else, it's not we're getting to your question.
So there is we do have a Facebook page, Manchester Ward 8 News and Views. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So if you are on Facebook, obviously that's one of the ways we plan on communicating heavily. And it's basically anybody can post who's in Ward 8. We don't really, unless it gets crass or whatnot, but we don't really monitor. So if there's something going on in your neighborhood, traffic, whatever it may be, or there's a school event and there's a concert at the school or whatnot, you can post anything and everything on there, anything Ward 8. And that's what we're doing tonight is we're broadcasting live on the Ward 8 page. So it's not the whole city, it's not the Facebook world, it's just if you're on our Ward 8 page. So we invite you to check that out as well.
And help yourselves to, if you haven't seen them yet, the refreshments, there's cookies, coffee, water, there's even tea provided by the Manchester School of Technology culinary program. So big thanks to them.
Take some home, put some in your pocket.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Ms. Machado, who's the principal here at MST, for allowing us to utilize her school. This is a great facility. If you haven't been in here in a long time, you may have recognized it as the Skill Center. Maybe, our age group, it used to be the Skill Center, and then it went to the CTE program. Now it's MST, which is actually it's broken up into two. The CTE program, where you could come in from West, Memorial, Bedford, anything outside tuition paying students can come here for their CTE program. They're a couple hours a day. Or about 4 years ago, they actually just graduated 2 classes. 4 years ago, they started MST High School, where you can come here starting in 9th grade, and there's a full curriculum. So it's actually a pretty unique program. My son comes here personally and absolutely loves being here. School doesn't start till 8:10. I drop him off at 7:10, and he eats breakfast here and plays cards with his friends in the morning. So if that tells you something about the school atmosphere, that they want to be here. And I also want to thank the school district as well for allowing us to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with John here. So I think what we ought to do now is, you may not know who we are, so we want to let you know kind of who we are, our background. This meeting here, obviously, we haven't even been sworn in yet, so there's very limited information that we have. We could promise things all day long, I guess, you know. But we want to make sure that we know, or you know, that we're available to you in kind of a one-on-one. And we're looking to do these more often. If you want to come in and have a seat, feel free. We're looking to do these more often. We're not exactly sure. We were just having this conversation of how often we want to do this. Might want to get a feel. Is once a month too much, where it'll get boring, or is once every 2 months, or when there's hot button topics, which there's gonna be, because obviously the contracts, you know, almost every contract in the city is coming up, as well as redistricting for the school. So there's a lot of hot button issues. So we just want to get a feel from you of what you would like us to do. Do it, you know, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly. And then the other thing along with the meetings is there's a couple ways we can do it. We can continue to have it here on a regular basis, so everybody knows where it is. When we have a meeting, it's here. Or we were thinking of possibly approaching businesses throughout our Ward 8 community, that we can actually hold our meetings at their facility, and then maybe talk them into giving us a tour of their facility so we know what happens in Ward 8. Aside from just driving in the streets, we could actually go into the buildings and see. So those are some of the things we're talking about. We try to make it as easy as possible for you to put on your calendar and to schedule, and not be like, you know, are we here today? Are we there today? We don't know. But I'll let John talk.
Sure. Show of hands, how many people would like it to be, you know, in one place, consistent, so you know, most people interested in that, or?
Sure, one place great.
Yeah?
Always count on Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah. All right, well, yeah, we can continue to discuss that.
Yeah. All right, so we'll talk about yourself.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about ourselves. A lot of you we may have met throughout the campaign, and you maybe saw some of our materials or some of the media that's out there. So you might know a little bit about our background already, but I'll kind of go over that again for those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet. I live over on Roisin Street, right across from Memorial, and I've got 2 young girls. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old daughter, and I've pretty much lived in and around Manchester my whole life. I grew up in Goffstown, but I went to school here in Manchester. I went to the Catholic schools in Manchester, graduated from Trinity, and stayed local for college. I went to St. Anselm College up the road, and then when I graduated college, I did a year of volunteer work with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. I did that out in Montana on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. It was a great experience. Came back from that, got married to my wonderful wife, Gabby, and like I said, now we have 2 daughters, and we live here in Manchester. And I brew beer for a living. A lot of people find that interesting. I'm also proud to say that I work locally too. I work here in Manchester at Great North Ale Works, over off of East Industrial Drive, Holt Ave. And we joked about having the meeting at the brewery. Maybe we'd get more people, but
seems to be working out all right. This is good.
Yeah, we wanted to keep it in Ward 8. So yeah, and you know, I like long walks on the beach. No, I'm you know, we can kind of discuss. You want to talk a little about yourself or issues? Or?
Sure, I love talking about myself. No, so a little bit about me. So I was born and raised in Manchester. I attended Parkside Junior High and graduated from West, class of '94. And my passion is music. So I'm not sure if anyone knows, you know, I have a band, and so we have a lot of fun with that. I have two boys. I've been married 15 years. I live over by St. Anthony's Park, right on the corner there. And 2 boys, one that comes here, as I mentioned earlier, and another one that goes to Southside. He's in 7th grade at Southside. On my spare time, I again play music, and I'm also the PSG president at Southside. So I try to be as involved as I can in our community. What I do for work, I work for Procon Construction, which is a design-build company out of Hooksett, right across from Hooksett Kawasaki. I'm their subcontractor ambassador. So I deal with all their subcontractors throughout the company, and we build large hotels, airport facilities, private schools, big box manufacturing plants and stuff. So I really love what I do. It's a great company. As I like to say, I've been there 2 years and I haven't worked a day yet. So if that tells you anything about the company, it's fantastic. So a little bit why I ran. I've been very involved within the last 4 years. And I started getting involved in the school district basically through advocacy. Several years back, I don't know if you remember, when there was a whole discussion on redistricting and they were talking about closing Jewett Street as a, K through 5 and then making it a citywide pre-K. I got involved because both my kids went there. It's a fantastic school. We got a group of parents together. Actually, some are here tonight, and we basically, we set up something to where we stopped it from happening. We didn't think it was the correct way to go about redistricting, and also more than that, it wasn't necessarily that they were looking at making that a pre-K. It was how it came about. There was no communication. There was no notice to us. The way we found out is our principal got a call from somebody who saw the agenda that night that they were discussing closing Jewett. So that's how quick it happened. So again, we got involved in that, and then apparently I'm the fence guy, where if you go by Jewett, there's a fence there now over by the playground. We were deeply concerned, what's that? You take no offense? There you go. So I got involved there as well. Cars go 40 miles an hour down that road, and there was no stopgap between the playground and the street. And the teachers never used at one of the PTG meetings. We asked them how the playground was working, and they're like, well, we never use it. And come to find out, they never did because they were fearful that the kids would just take off. So what we did was I worked with Parks and Recs and our facilities, and we designed the fence. You see, it's only 2 sides. It doesn't block the public from going in there. It just allows a teacher to be at one end and at the other, and it keeps the kids corralled and they can use the playground. And last I heard, I just met with them a couple weeks ago, and they absolutely love it. And the kids are using it all the time now. And I got involved. I think I have a lot to offer, a lot of different ideas. I don't claim to be a politician. I hope I don't become one through this process. I want to be a voice. I started off as a parent, a concerned parent, and as a Ward 8 resident that basically didn't see anything really happening, that we didn't really have a voice. So I decided to ran 2 years ago, lost my first round, obviously ran again this time, and fortunately enough, I was able to be called on to represent you. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I've already hit the ground running. There's 7 schools, or actually 8 schools if you include Founders. There's 8 schools in Ward 8, which is approximately 40% of the schools in the district. So we have a lot down here on the south end, and you would think we'd get a lot more attention than we do. Unfortunately, we don't. And I was able a couple weeks ago to meet with every principal, toured every school, met a lot of the great faculty, teachers that we have, was able to sit in on some classes. And contrary to popular belief, there are some great things happening in our schools. You read the headlines and it's always the fancy headline of everything that's bad that's happening, and very rare do you hear the good stuff. So hopefully I can bring some of that good news as well. And then I also already had a couple meetings with Dr. Vargas to discuss some of my goals, some of my plans, and to learn what he wants to do. Obviously he's steering the ship, so I want to see what ways I can support him and what ways we can have a very cordial discussion of how we see our district. First thing, I think, on the school board side, and I know Dr. Vargas is working on this as a long-term plan. We haven't had a long-range plan in a long time. You know, what is our district going to look like 10 years from now? I think we need to set up our district so no matter who's in charge or no matter who's on the board, every 2 years we have these thing called elections, so it's always you know, flipping, and you know, so we stay on track, we stay focused. What do we look like 10 years from now? The other thing that I'm extremely passionate about, obviously being in the construction trades, is trades in our schools. Trying to bring, you know, shop back, trying to bring some hands-on stuff back to our schools. Right now, the average age of a tradesman is 51, and in about 12 to 15 years, they're all going to be retiring. But unfortunately, we have about a 20-year window where we didn't promote it in our schools, and there's going to be a huge gap. You know, try to get a plumber in about 10 years from now, and it'll be very interesting. Or an electrician. So I'm trying to bring awareness back to our schools. Fortunately, I did have one school that picked up when I was running, picked up on my 5-point plan, called me up. So since like October, we've been working on a pilot program at Parkside Junior High. We're still in the development stage, but we're hoping to roll that out with the blessing of the entire board as well as Dr. Vargas. We're hoping to roll out a program at Parkside, a pilot program that hopefully will take hold from the rest of the school. Fortunate thing is we have a lot of tradespeople, organizations that are supporting us, so we don't think it's going to cost the district a penny to put this program together, and it's going to get a lot of support. The other thing that I'm also passionate about is parent advocacy. I think without the parents, you know, we're set up for failure. I think we have to build community within our schools, and we also have to communicate with our parents. They have to become part of the plan in our schools and what we're doing. I think right now, or at least in the past, it was the student. You know, I kind of said it was kind of a vertical line where it was the student and the teacher, or the student and the faculty, whether that be the counseling. I think we need to bring it to more of a triangle, to where it's the teacher, the student, and the parent all have a say in what they feel, how the students should progress. So I want to bring a lot more voice to the parents, and one of the ways I'd like to do that is by starting a parent advisory council at the board level. Not sure what that would look like. Obviously, again, you need the blessing of the board, but it's something I want to bring to their attention, some type of parent advocacy group to where we can have these discussions on a frequent basis, but more at a board level where we can have board members up here, you know, and it would be more of a board organization with minutes and an agenda, so you would know coming in exactly what it would be. But that's being worked on. So those are some of my plans. I'll let John talk, and then I guess we can open it up for questions if you have any after. So go ahead.
Yeah, I ran for alderman because I could see that we weren't being well represented in City Hall. That I heard a lot of stories from people who talked about not getting phone calls back, not getting issues addressed, and you watch the meetings, and the decorum was lacking in the meetings, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to get involved and provide people with an example of what good leadership is, and so that really propelled me forward to run for alderman, and also because I just have such a passion for this city. Like I said, I grew up basically in Manchester, and ever since graduating college, and I want to see it succeed. I want to do everything I can to help it succeed, and I think, like Jimmy mentioned, with the schools getting a bad rap. The city, we're also getting a bad rap, and there's a lot of really good things happening in the city that we need to try to highlight. It's often said, bad news is free, and unfortunately, there's this perception that we need to change. And so I'm going to work on that. My biggest issues, number one, the opioid crisis. I want to do everything I can to support the people who, who are fighting this. Listen to the leaders. Do what we can to try to reduce it as much as we can. I mean, it's going to be a long road. It's going to take many years to do this. But I see it as the biggest issue that faces this city because it permeates all departments. I mean, it takes first and foremost, it's our neighbors. It's our friends and family. Everyone's affected by it. It's a terrible crisis to have to watch people fight these addictions, and so not only that, but because it's a crisis, because the police are needing to spend so much resources on it, and it's taking away attention from other departments and putting those resources in other places. So we really need to try to solve that to help this city flourish. And economic development, I really want to try to do everything I can to help the Office of Economic Development, help attract new businesses. And we just had, I don't know how many people saw the great article about Army and what they're trying to do in the mills to make Manchester a manufacturing city again, but manufacturing artificial limbs, really the 21st century manufacturing. And there's a potential there. Manchester has that potential, and it just needs to be tapped. But really, most importantly, like I said in the beginning, I want to listen. I want to be an example of good leadership for you all, and I'm here to help in any way I can. If it's a street sign in a neighborhood, if it's speeding, I've already gotten a couple calls about speeding in their neighborhoods. Getting traffic studies done, figuring out how to solve that issue. I've spoken with Mayor-elect Joyce Craig already. And I've told her some of the issues that I came across when I was out door knocking around the ward. Told her what my priorities are. And I've started meeting with some department heads, trying to get around and meet with the department heads and the departments. So far, I've had the opportunity to sit down with the airport and the airport directors, Ward 8, Public Works, economic development, waterworks, planning. I mean, one thing that has across the board been true is just how committed all of these people are to improving the city and doing their best job. I've been blown away by the professionalism and just how knowledgeable everybody is about what it is that they're doing within the city. And so, that being said, I think we should open it up to.
One of the things we want to definitely do, depending on our conversations, so if we weigh heavily on, facilities tonight, or there's a certain discussion, one of the things we want to do is bring in guests.
Right.
So we're
We
hoping.
have one of them here tonight. I don't know if anybody knows. Bob Gagney is chair of the Board of Assessors. He's a Ward 8 resident. So we're very fortunate to have him here tonight. If you happen to have any questions, I think he was hoping I'll try my best to answer them, and then we'll hopefully I think he just
We'll
wants
have
to
him
be
as a
here.
guest one day.
Yeah,
How's
as a
that?
guest one
So-
day. We'll come back.
So we're hoping that the next meeting we do have Mayor-elect, who actually will be sworn in, can join us and discuss, some of her views and some of her things that are going on. So we're going to be bringing in
Yeah, if there's
special guests constantly,
an
depending
issue
on
that
Yeah.
is relevant to the ward, and it has to do with planning or something, then we'll try to get
Schools,
that.
Dr.
Or
Vargas.
schools, Dr.
Yeah.
Vargas will try to get that
So
director in.
excellent. So I guess we'll open it for questions if there are any questions. All right, there we go.
Bill Roy, I live right here on Cambridge Court. John, in regard to the plowing, I've been in this city for 68 years, minus a 4-year hiatus when I was in the Navy, and this is the worst plowing I've ever seen this past year. And I went through the a snowy decade of the 60s, and especially February 20th, 1969, still surpasses the blizzard of 78. People don't realize that. And they handled that with aplomb. This year, it was like going on back roads. Those washboards on Western Road. I had to call up twice to get my street plowed. The plowers right now are going at least 7 feet away from the curbs when they come. That freezes up overnight. It's not the quality that we used to see. But talking with the employees at the highway department, they said number one is training. They don't take the time to train. They've taken away the wingmen. You have to have a wingman to properly clear the snow, to see what you're doing. Now they're just having the driver doing it, and they put them under a lot of pressure. Ben Franklin once said that if you think the cost of business is expensive, try eliminate training. And that's what they've done. And there's a lot of frustration in the highway department amongst the workers. We have to get the wingman back in, because this situation last year was terrible. And when Mr. Bolesky ran it, it was no problem. Now we have this new gentleman by the name of Mr. Davini, and Kevin Shepard's got to get on. Get this straightened out. This was horrible. And another situation in the city, they call Paris the city of lights. I like to call Manchester the city of four-way stop signs and three-way stop signs. I talked to the people at the highway department. Talking with the people who are down in the trenches really tells you a story. And the guys in highway tell me that actually four-way signs are illegal, except in certain situations. I go around this town and I see four-way stop signs on steep hills. You can't do that here in Manchester. Lowell Street, High Street, I know that doesn't apply to here. What happens when you start from a stop sign? Bam, you come right back down, you create a hazard situation. That's one thing that's really concerning me. And as far as school, get back to the basics. Let's get back to civics. All right. Let's get back to what our country's about. For the three branches of government: state, local, and national. I'd like to see the kids start getting more training in that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if you don't, you might see me taking notes, so please keep talking. But thank you for that. I saw it. We should also say we do have some residents here from other wards. So welcome to Ward 8, but that's good. We encourage inclusivity, and so go ahead.
Okay.
Your name and
My name is Marilyn
okay.
Pettigrew, and I'm actually in Ward 5 and cross guard at Ward 7, Hallsville School, but that's another whole story. I want to plant seeds in everybody's heads, okay? About 12 years ago, I became a lunch lady, and it was at Webster School, and this little fourth grader was coming out in the basketball room with his paraprofessional, and I didn't understand that. I said, wow, what's that all about? You know, so I just didn't get it. Later on, I get transferred to Central, and I ran into the boy that was in the fourth grade at the time. Then later on, I get transferred to West. Saw the boy again. By this point, junior in high school, getting into trouble, serious trouble. And no matter what I said to him, I couldn't get anywhere with him. The last time I saw him, I fist bumped him, and he chuckled. And that was the best thing. You know where this boy is today? In jail. So when I retired, I became a volunteer in a grammar school. I'm a good cry. And I started watching the children. By the time they were in fourth grade, they were already made. So policemen come to the schools now, in elementary schools, on a negative note. It's when the kids are getting out of control. And by the time they get to middle school, they're formed. We can do a practice session on picking up garbage. We need to do more for our kids. They are our future in this city that we're talking about. Losing my train of thought here. I think we need to do a practice session on having a policeman. My two choices of schools would be Beach Street and Hallsville. To have them come into the lunchroom 5 days a week, 2 to 2.5 hours, do a trial session and see what the kids are like by the time they hit 4th grade, because they're dealing with the police in a positive note, not a negative note. That's my story. Please pass it around. Please plant the seeds.
So starting in the junior highs, they actually have SROs.
Yeah.
So starting in the junior highs, and I could tell you my experience with with Officer Abruzzi over at Southside is amazing. It's exactly what you're talking about. He goes and fist pumps the kids and basically gives the kid the look and does his thing. He has a ton of respect.
But they need to have that in the
And
elementary
that's
school
something that should be
before
talked
they're
about.
born. Because it's too late. When I saw these kids leaving school in 4th, 5th grade, I said, oh my God, there's no reaching these children. So please plant the seeds. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're gonna leave because this, thank you. My husband was good enough to drive me. I'm gonna grab some goodies.
There you go. Stuff them in your pocket.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, join us anytime, please.
Thank you. I want to move to Ward 8.
Oh, perfect.
I do love our school board member and our alderman. They are good, so.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
John, my name is Bob Corbio. I live at 33 Maple Lane. You've already met my wife, Deb. I'm also the president of the Crystal Lake Preservation Society. We do a cleanup in the spring, and we also have an annual meeting in the fall, and we have a lot of issues at Crystal Lake. And just want to let you know that I'm hoping I can get you down here for the cleanup and our annual meeting, so you can meet the people. It's at Erica's house. I'm sure you know where Erica lives. Erica Connors?
Yeah.
So, anyway, we have issues down there. Right now, we're trying a pilot program of locking the gate and keeping it closed because you can't move the gate when it's cold. And if I leave the gate open at night, we get drug activity down there, so.
During the day, too.
During the day, too, so we started closing that. Other issues we have down there that we're looking for funding will be the Phragmites. And for anybody that doesn't know what a Phragmite is, just go look at Stevens Pond. The entire perimeter of Stevens Pond has been taken over by Phragmites, and we're trying to keep that from happening at Crystal Lake. So I just want to let you know that, we look forward to talking in the future. We also do a road race down at Crystal Lake. It's called the Missy's Hope 5K, in honor of Missy Canton Charbonneau, who was murdered by her husband on Jewett Street in 2009. It's another great event. Hopefully we can get you down there. There's a lot of people down there, and they'd like to meet you.
Yeah, any events like that, if you could notify, even though it's not school related, please notify.
Cards, because
We
a lot
will.
of people might not have
Once we,
email or
once we,
Facebook or-
Right.
once we get sworn in and stuff, then we'll
Okay.
have all the, actually, you can go right on the city website and it'll have all our
Yes.
information, phone numbers, stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, but some of the elderly people don't.
The cleanup's the first or second weekend of May. I'll get it over to you when we have a set date.
Great.
Excellent. One of the,
In the meeting.
yes.
Yes.
It's in August.
One of the things we're looking at, I've reached out to all the schools in Ward 8, we're looking at doing, I don't know what you'd call it, but it would be like a Earth Day type event with all our schools, to where I already talked to Todd Connors, and he's pretty excited about it, working with us, and we'll have one day of where we just do all the schools, school grounds, get the parents involved, the community involved, and then there's talk of even maybe at the end of that, having a barbecue down at the corner field over by Memorial.
Oh, yep.
Just another community activity. So we're not sure where that's going yet, but there is talk of doing something like that as well, so.
Gentleman in the back. Yeah.
Bob Shimoni. Hey, first of all, thanks for pulling this together. I've lived in my house for 38 years, and my neighbors still tell me that I'm really not New Hampshire yet because we moved here. But I don't recall ever having something like this happen, so I appreciate your effort pulling it together.
Thank you.
And if you're going to do more, that would be great. I would offer the thought, though, if you're bringing people together, have a content to bring people together. And it sounds like you're going to on that. And I think you made the phrase or the statements like, hey, what we want, what we're looking for. I'm very interested once you get bit more and understand the whys and wherefores to hear what you think is gonna happen, what you need to do, what you wanna do, and what your game plans are gonna be. I've never really heard those before. I've heard, you know, the political comments before, when somebody gets elected, I wanna do this, I wanna do that. And, you know, I think there's a huge challenge that you both are willing to accept this, because it's not an easy job. I think what you both stepped into, because there's just so many, you just heard 3 or 4 different needs in 10, 20 minutes here. So anyway, thank you, and I would recommend just have good content for these meetings.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
I think one of the things that I'm going to strive to do anyway is try and touch the third rail. That everybody knows what those topics are, but nobody approaches them, whether it's because they won't get reelected or whatnot. But I think if we have these type of forums and these type of conversations, and we let you know what those third rails are, we get feedback as opposed.
Third rail, like Joe Kelly with that
So.
stuff. Yeah.
So it would be more like, you know, so redistricting, that's a third rail. I mean, that is gonna have to be a discussion we have to have. And where it goes, where Dr. Vargas, you know, takes us, I'm not sure. But we definitely want direction. You know, and so we're not looking for, you know, to have these meetings we want the discussion, not just to show up and, you know, be yelled at or even be agreed with. You know, we want to have, you know, between you and you and you, and that's how we all learn, right? Probably one of the best meetings I ever attended, a city meeting, was a redistricting meeting where they opened it up to the public to have a conversation back and forth with the board, not just the 3 minutes that you would see at a school board meeting or an automatic meeting. And what we found out real quick was when somebody talked over here, this person didn't think of that. All of a sudden got up and built off of what this person said, and then that person didn't realize this and heard a story that this was happening, and then come to find out, and that was, you know, and as a community, we didn't figure it out, obviously, redistricting, because a lot has changed since then. But I think if we all walk together, when we get to whatever decision we have to come to, we'll understand why we're at that decision. So that's personally my goal through this process.
Yeah.
So.
Just to follow up on what Jimmy was saying, I know both of us, I can speak for Jimmy, we're coming into this with an open mind. You know, the campaigns are what they are, but I know Jimmy and I, we tried our best to keep it positive, and because we knew that if we're elected, we serve everyone. And so I know that there may be people in this room here tonight that didn't vote for either Jimmy or I, but that's okay. I mean, we're here to serve everyone, and like I said, I'm coming into this with an open mind, and I want to consider all opinions, certainly, because like Jimmy said, there may be something that I didn't think of or I missed. So thank you again, everyone, for coming here tonight.
I have a question for you, school board. We lost the parents 15, 18 years ago. Like that woman said with the lunch lady, that was my profession too. We need to bring back the parents into their children because they stepped away. They don't care. They don't, or whatever their issues are, drugs, whatever. We need to bring them back, and we need to be, my opinion, we need to be the village that raises the children instead of, I don't see what my neighbor's doing. I don't care what they're doing. You know what I mean? That needs to be brought to the school board, to the school, to...
Which is one of those reasons why I'm starting, or I would like to start, I keep saying I'm starting, but I would like to start and get the board's approval to do this exploratory parental advisory. One thing I want to caution, just because a parent doesn't necessarily go to the school or is involved in the doesn't necessarily mean that they're not involved with their child.
Right.
I think what we need to do as a district is we need to figure out how can we work with this. You know, they may work nights. Obviously, today's age, both parents work. A lot of times the kids are at home alone. How do we reach those parents to get involved in our community. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to bake cookies and be at every meeting, but we want to know that you're involved.
Right.
You know, attending the open houses. You know, at Southside Experience 4 years ago when Miss Gillis took over, I think she did an open house at the beginning of the year, and she was lucky, I think, if she got 50 people. Now the gym is packed, and that's only 4 years. So they're doing something right and reaching. I know Green Acres, I was there last night meeting with a couple of the PTG there, or a couple nights ago. And I mean, what they're doing over there is incredible. So I definitely agree with you. I think we have to figure out as a community, how do we get those parents back involved? How do we get them back onto the team, into the schools? So I definitely agree, so.
I want to kind of build on that.
Your name, please.
Oh, Mike Porter. So I met with the superintendent, and so he gave me coffee and wheat over at Jewett Street School. And I learned about it the day before, thanks to the Ward 8 page, actually. And so I went, and I was the only parent there. The rest were teachers. But here's what impressed me the most, was it was held at 7:30 in the morning. The teachers contractually weren't required to be at the meeting. And I would say maybe 20 plus teachers attended. And it wasn't about contracts, it wasn't about, they actually had a dialogue with their boss. And as a parent, I took that to heart, because that's the first step, I think, in getting parents involved. Parents have been, I do kind of blame the schools for pushing parents away. There was a time period where schools didn't want parents to be involved, because there is a difference between parental interference versus parental involvement, and I think a lot of parents try to interfere. So if you have one teacher and 30 parents coming at you. But I'm noticing a change with the superintendent as far as trying to reach out to the community. And when I walked in, I always try to go to meetings and learn something new when I walk out of it, because that's how we all learn. Open to learning. I learned that the teachers and the dedication they have, simply by showing up and being there at 7:30 in a meeting, they did not have to be at it. And that, as a parent, made me feel they are the guardians of the gate. They are there for our children. So to kind of go a little off of that now, you know, a friend of mine came up from down south, Massachusetts. One of the things he remarked about was, you know, he says, South Willow Street is really the gateway to Manchester, not Granite Street, but South Willow Street, because, you know, the airport, you go down that way, the mall in New Hampshire, and all the stores, and he says, where's the holiday spirit in Manchester? He says, why aren't these businesses maybe ponying up some money, so the city doesn't have to pay for it, but to somehow make South Willow Street more inviting? It's his exact words were, "It's an embarrassment." And I don't know if that's something you guys can
No,
approach
that's a neat idea, yeah.
it could be snowflakes, it doesn't have to be religious, just like
It's
snowflakes.
an Elm Street focus.
Well, right.
Tim Baines is here, everybody.
Oh.
I just thank you for coming. Yeah, no, that's a great point, because you know, one thing I wanted to try to focus on as alderman was obviously everyone taking pride in the city of Manchester as a whole, but really even getting more hyper-local, and Ward 8 taking pride in Ward 8. And South Willow, a section of it, is part of Ward 8. And so that's a great way to, you know, I mean, we're all probably around South Willow, given that we're living in this ward quite often. And so that would be really nice. And yeah, getting the business community together. Something that I talked a lot about during the campaign was bringing business leaders and community leaders together. So if you'd be willing to chair a committee. No. Yeah.
I also think, first of all, this is the most people I've seen compared to the last two budget meetings, and nobody showed up. So this is a great start. And I've lived in Ward 8 for a long time. And the last time I even had a notice from our elected officials was when a prison was being contemplated being built over by the airport. And we got that notice, I think, like 2 days before the hearing. And so I appreciate this, because getting down to City Hall sometimes can be daunting. I've done it, but you are our conduit, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are doing this, because it gives us a voice, and I feel like Ward 8 is back on the map.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually met with Dr. Vargas this morning, and I haven't had a chance to talk to John. Contrary to popular belief, John and I barely know each other. I mean, we ran together because that was our strategy of how we thought we could win. But I honestly don't know where he stands on a lot of issues. He doesn't know where I stand on a lot of it. But regardless, we got to work together, and so this is how we're starting. But I did talk to Dr. Vargas this morning about a concern I have at the south end that's fairly unique to our schools. We have some schools that are Title I, some schools that are not Title I, and they're blocks away from each other. In Title I, if you know anything about Title I, that's determined on free and reduced lunch. So it's basically pure economics, not education, it's basically pure economics. But what ends up happening is you end up with a situation, say like Highland, that is a non-Title I school that gets very little help from the city, from the taxpayer, and most of their kids are from the Brent Street area that already feel like they're not part of the city. They feel a lot of times they're part of Litchfield, which is concerning. So it's bringing awareness, and one of the things we talked about with Dr. Vargas was him and I getting together with Mayor-elect Craig to discuss business partnerships down here at the south end, and approaching businesses to actually become partners with our schools and commit. Right now, it just, to me anyway, the feeling I get is when a company wants to come in and dump money onto our school system, it's Wilson or Beach Street. And that's the feeling I get. No one ever really looks at the south end. So I want to bring awareness to the south end, and that's one of the things that he mentioned that maybe we can explore, is actually having partnerships with businesses in our local schools. I was extremely excited to hear him say that, and I definitely jumped on board. Where it goes, he's going to kind of lead the charge with myself and Mayor-elect. But obviously John will be involved. So that is something we're doing in the way of business, Mike. Ed?
Yeah, it's Bienza, 59 Memorial Drive. I just have a question for Jimmy. Jimmy, this place you've been at for 2 years now, where you haven't worked a day yet. Are there any openings? But no, listen, I guess more of a comment than a question. I just want to say in relation to the Lucas Road development, okay? Obviously, I guess if we move on, it's not a done deal. I mean, I know they've done the rezoning. There has been a lawsuit filed, okay? And I don't want to speak for my buddy who's also a Ward 8 resident, he's not here tonight. There has been a lawsuit filed, I believe it's public information, but the short version of that story is, it's not a done deal, okay? And I'll just leave it at that for now, and just bear that in mind, okay? It's far from being a done deal.
Yeah.
And obviously, there'll be more information available on it. This is public information, it's not a big secret. And just one more thing briefly, talking about the third rail, I think the third rail, and you mentioned Joe Cataldo, I think is another way of saying unpleasant things, but
Correct.
things that need to be brought up. I
Correct.
just want to say briefly, I hope that the city can get labor costs under control. Things like fast day are an abomination, and I hope that all of a sudden, all of the city doesn't have fast day holiday, okay? And I won't go on and on about that, that's all, and thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm glad you brought up I was actually going to talk a little bit about the Lucas Road development, because that was part of my conversation with Leon and planning. And so you pretty much summed it up, though. It's not a done deal. There is a court case. It has to do with the petition.
20%?
Yeah, the 20%, whether it was, it required a majority vote, or a super majority vote, or just a simple majority vote. So it's obviously yet to be seen what the result of that court case is going to be. It sort of comes down to how the ordinance is interpreted. And so the city is going to interpret it one way, and obviously the people filing it will interpret it another way. So we'll see how that turns out. But even after that, as you know, or probably well aware, it's still got to go through the planning board approval. So they have to still approve the project, so it's still not a done deal. I know there were a lot of passionate voices through that whole process, and I know many of you felt like you weren't being heard, and I'm sorry for that, and I want you to know that I'm here to be your advocate, and I'll continue to advocate on your behalf in all situations, in all scenarios.
I can relate a story back in the 60s. Joe's a longtime Ward 8 resident. He lives on Hughes Road, and I've lived on top of Western Road. If you remember this, Joe, back in the mid-60s, they wanted to do the industrial park right here that is now on Brown Ave, with Memorial High right across. I can still remember to this day my father and getting involved and all the people on Western Road up to Hughes Road. We actually had to hire a lawyer, Emo Boussier. We all pitched in to fight this, and they said it was a done deal that we couldn't win this. Well, we did win it. And it did end up getting on Brown Ave, but that's how close this was to becoming an industrial area. And we all pitched together, and I was just a kid at the time, I was a teenager at Memorial High, but I don't forget that. I don't think you remember that, Joe.
Excellent, thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
Who, would you want? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Joe Ducal, 156 Hughes Road. You touched on it lightly when you first started your talk, and the city was getting a bad rap. Why is it that we have so many city employees, including teachers, firemen, policemen, city hall workers, living outside of Manchester? Now, could we conduct a survey when you pass out the checks out a couple of months and find out why they moved out? All I hear about, the ones moving out, including, I won't tell you his name, but a very political person in the city, niece and nephew moved out to Bedford. And so I asked him why. He said, my kids are not going to school in Manchester. And he's paying probably twice as many taxes, dollars, than he was when he was living in Manchester. So there's something wrong somewhere.
Yep. I definitely agree. Personally, that's not my experience. And it's unfortunate that people, I do hear the same thing. You know, we're going to move out of the city before they even hit the schools.
Yeah.
My experience, you know, right up to 9th grade has been nothing but spectacular. But again, I think it comes down to the parents being involved. I honestly do. I think that if the parents are involved, the kids are going to be okay. They cannot be involved in Bedford, and they're going to deal with the same things. Manchester is a big city. We do get the bad rap. We don't have the funds to cover things. We don't have, so Bedford does have its issues, I promise you. It does have its issues, but we don't hear about it because you don't hear about that stuff from Bedford.
But they have supplies in school, though. Or
You are correct.
many supplies.
You are
Where
correct.
the teachers here in Manchester have to put up, you know.
Yep.
My wife and I were both teachers, and my wife would spend at least $1,000 a year, and sometimes up to $2,300 a year, just buying supplies for her first grade class.
Yep. Yep. And I have.
She never said a word,
Yep.
and there's a lot of them like that. Nobody says.
Oh, there are
word.
a
Just
lot.
keep their mouth shut,
Yep.
and they just keep spending. As much hell as I gave her.
I do have an idea in mind, but all the blocks would have to fall in place. Utilizing this Keno money that's supposed to be education. So I'm hoping to discuss this with the alderman. Some ideas that I have. I think we have to take care of our foundation. You could build walls all day long. If your foundation is crumbling, it doesn't matter. Again, I'm going to use a construction, metaphor. But in that foundation is having the supplies, the proper equipment to teach these kids. So my idea would be some of this Keno funding. We're already paying for citywide. It's already in our taxes right now. So Keno is actually money that's added money. Now, the question is, did the alderman look at it and say, that's money that, we've already given you and we're going to take this 1.8 million? Or can we discuss with them on splitting it? But my thought is whatever happens with that Keno money should be put aside as a fund for a teacher. If the teacher does buy something, they can turn in a receipt, or the other way around, they can request they need this for their classroom and somebody can approve it or whatnot. Because you know as well as I do that this Keno money, that 1.8 million is 100% this year. 5 years it's 50%, 7 years it's 20%, and then it's gone. That's just how it works. And so I think if we take that money and we waste this opportunity to knowing that in the back of our mind, and we add overhead that we know down the road we're not going to get this funding, but we fund our foundation as long as we can and as best as we can with this money. Then when we're not getting it, you know who's going to be yelling? Everybody. The teachers are going to be yelling, the faculty is going to be yelling, we're going to be yelling at the state, why are we not getting this money? Of course, there's a lot of blocks that have to fall in place, so we'll be talking, I'm sure. Yeah. That is an idea I have. Whether or not it takes off, I don't know.
Lottery money, we're not getting what we're supposed to get from it.
Yep. And matter of fact, it was interesting because I was at a meeting last Thursday.
Yeah.
I was at a meeting last Thursday where it was a dinner with the governor, and he was fielding questions, and it was about workforce development. And so I asked them, they were talking about college and funding college and UNH and the university system and his thoughts on it. And so I raised my hand and I said, I can make the argument that we should be starting workforce and career development in 7th grade. And you're talking millions and millions of dollars for our university system. How about we just fund the mandates that to our local schools? That we sign on to these programs that we're promised. We'll give you 70% of the funding if you sign on to this program, sign on to all this red tape, and follow it. And then 10 years down the road, it's down to 10% or 20%. Well, why are we not looking at this program and seeing, does it still make sense? Can we get off the program and do it cheaper? But we have to start analyzing that first. I know Dr. Avard a couple years ago broached that subject, and it got slapped. That was really a third rail out of nowhere. You wouldn't think it would be, but it was a third rail. And I want to work with Dr. Avard to try and bring that back, to try and figure out where our funding is coming from. Where did it start 10 years ago, and where is it now? And is it something that makes sense?
And I just want to say that you're doing the right thing by coming here tonight. All of you are. And I'm glad that we're able to provide this. I'm grateful and I'm humbled to be able to provide this avenue, because there is a perception problem, I would say, but there are also real issues that are facing the schools. Reasons that people are actually experiencing and pulling their kids out, and so I think there seems to certainly be a wave right now that we need to capitalize on, where people are going to be willing to touch that third rail and actually have the courage to make real change to ultimately change that perception. But it's through grassroots organization and all of you making your voices heard and demanding from us that we actually do something instead of just talk. And so and I don't. Everyone says redistricting, but it's not just redistricting. You have to figure out what you're going to do with the open classrooms that are out there, and they're going to present the facilities audit soon, so that'll be very interesting to see what comes out of that. But keep holding our feet to the fire, and everybody, and that's why I'm glad too that other people from other wards actually came here tonight, because I would encourage all of you, if some other aldermen or school board members decide to start doing these kind of meetings, go to their meetings too, and again, continue to show up to the full board meetings and comment. You had something in the back?
Yeah, I mean, you work on Ward 5, and I was wondering what subcommittees you were both interested in being on and why.
Good question. I was very interested in community improvement in the airport, that's a special committee, but since it's in Ward 8, and honestly, I made my voice heard that I was really there just to serve, and wherever, the mayor sees fit for me to serve, given this is my first term, first time at this, I'm happy to serve on any committee, really. And because one thing you can guarantee from me, no matter the committee, I'm going to be fully invested. So, yeah.
For me, it was, when I'm discussing with Mayor-elect was Building and Sites, and then the Conduct Committee, and either C&I or Finance were my three. And then hopefully we can pass a special committee on parental advisory. So we'll see where that goes. There was one other one here.
Scott Weigler, Ward 8, 18 Wild Report. I want to thank you both for doing this. I've been saying they should be doing this for years and years and years, and I'm glad to see you guys have stepped up. I really applaud you for it. So you were talking about the third rail. Well, I'll give you a third rail. How about athletics in the school budget? About $2 million we spent on athletics, and I'm not saying that I think it's great that we have athletics. I think it's great for the students, but why do we not make the students? Why do we not make the students or the parents pay anything for the athletics? And it seems to me that there could be some cost sharing there. And also with all these businesses around, Manchester, are there any opportunities for sponsorships? I know like the Manchester Monarchs, they have like CMC. Even Celtics have GE. I mean, everywhere you've got businesses sponsoring teams. Why don't we do this in Manchester with the schools? They could, some money to it. Maybe, Memorial High football team would be sponsored by, some company out here, or sell ads for around the fields and things like that to help defray costs. Now we use that $2 million, to help buy the school supplies and help hire an extra teacher or what have you.
That is a great question that I would love to find the answer for. I know when I was putting up the fence, or when we were, not when I was putting up, but when we were discussing putting up the fence, one of the things we talked about was getting sponsors that could actually, it was $7,000 we needed. We figured we can go down to South Willow Street and pick that up pretty quick. And if we offered a sign placement, go down to GameStop, they're right outside of school, and put a sign placement, and you can't because it's public property, it's school property. And so, but why can't you? I guess that would be my question is, we have these publicly funded places like SNU Arena, but we use that to offset certain costs. So why even as a school, why can't we discuss, Verizon school at Jewett Street? I don't know. I mean, those are truly answers I'd love to try and get.
And why not shift some of the burden to the parents that have the kids play sports? Because I have a daughter that plays club soccer, and we pay $2,000 a year for her to play soccer. Why have the parents pay for some of these things associated with these sports? I heard somewhere that they were buying mouth guards for kids in some of these sports. It's like, where does it end if you're buying mouth guards? I mean, I can see maybe uniforms that the city owns and the students use, but how far are we going with this? Paying for everybody's sports.
We had a great opportunity this year where his name passes now, but he runs the flag football league over up at Livingston, and he offered his services, and he bought uniforms for the middle schools for soccer to start a soccer program, and it had to go through a process to be approved and stuff like that. And I know for South Little League, talking with the president there and the vice president, they're like, we'll do it for nothing. We just want to get in the school, and we can provide our services. Again, that would be a question I'd love to ask, and have the discussion on why these established organizations that do it very well, the South program for soccer is fantastic. So why can't we lean on them a little bit? I don't know. I mean, and I'd be more than willing to touch that rail and find out, you know?
Yeah, good question. That's, ideas
Good.
like that will hopefully go a long way towards, saving the city money, and it'll be interesting to see, legally where that falls. But we'll certainly look into that.
So we want to thank everyone for coming tonight. You had one? You had a
One more.
question?
Another question?
All right, yeah.
Couple more? Yeah.
My name's Mike Corson. Actually, I live in Scotia, New York, so I'm really visiting, but I'm here with my mother for Christmas. If you want something practical to work on, you can ask where the hell the police are after hours at the school buildings.
Oh, my God.
My mother lives on South Jewett Street. In fact, she has a ringside view of Memorial football field. And there's that big parking lot there. And when it started snowing, Saturday? When did we get our present coating of snow, Saturday or Sunday? After hours on school property in that parking lot, there were kids out there in cars doing donuts, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah, no, I hear it too.
and I don't know about the upper parking lot. We see lights up there, after hours in the dark. And then in the summertime, it's, they're not doing donuts because obviously there's no ice, but the parking lot is like the local hangout,
Oh,
okay?
loud
You see,
music.
loud
They
music.
have to be doing drugs because
Yeah,
it's.
they come and they jump from car to car, and they'll drive in, they'll drive out at high speed, okay? And why the police aren't there is a mystery to me, because if you wanted to make some arrests, you only had to park a few cruisers and just line up the cars, okay? And go probably from car to car to make some arrests on school property, okay? It is very loud in the summertime. Because it's nice warm weather, they can hang out all night, or practically all night. With the windows open, you notice that, of course, a lot, because the noise just comes right in. I don't know what it's like in the Jewett Street School or, Hallville, that's the brick one by Hayward Avenue. But, of course, the high school is equipped with multiple parking lots, and it's equipped for students who drive. I don't know about this school particularly, because we don't see it. But there is a lot of noisy, probably illegal activity going on in the school grounds after hours. So,
Well,
if you want to.
yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up.
Tell them to post some cruisers out there.
Yeah,
Particularly some unmarked cars, they'll see more that way.
I live within earshot too. I hear the donuts
Oh, yeah.
when the snow starts, and I think that kind of goes back to one of my original points, which was a lot of the focus is on solving the opioid crisis, and rightfully so. But that is also taking a lot of resources and police personnel to downtown, where it's a big issue, and pulling it from some of the perimeter district wards. So one thing I would like to do is sit down with the chief, look at the budget, and I would really love to get some more police officers on the streets, some more personnel, so that when there's an issue downtown and they need to pull multiple police officers closer to this downtown or anywhere really in the city, because it's citywide, honestly, that there's enough police officers still around to address those kind of issues.
I don't think they have to be there every night. I
Right.
think if they made it random enough, and they bagged enough criminals.
Something else, it's an issue I'm going to write down, and I'm going to certainly follow up on that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mario Leclerc, I live on Coldwell Street off of Brown Ave. I've lived in the city for 36 years, Ward A resident for 28, and traffic on Brown Ave is horrendous. The police department does not perform their duties unless they're hitting 50 miles an hour. Forget the 35 and the 40, it's 50. And they're out there periodically, and they're pulling people over, and they're giving tickets. But it's a quality of life issue. When I moved here in 1981, I was a city employee, excuse me, and I worked a shift with a co-worker, and he's lived in Goffstown. So he asked me where I lived, and back then I lived on Manchester Street, nice little apartment. And I said, what's a Goffstown? I mean, I came from northern New Hampshire. So he says, you don't speed in Goffstown. And to this day, you don't speed in Goffstown.
No, I know. I grew up, I was a 16-year-old with my license in Goffstown. Yeah.
You plan to go to Goffstown,
Yeah,
for sure.
And number two, the city recently rolled out the C-Click Fix program.
Yes.
One of the pitfalls it has is that, I don't know who has the dashboard, I'm a former City of Nashua employee, I had a dashboard. There it was called IntelliGov, where citizens called in or wrote in for potholes, anything that, same thing as C-Click Fix. The department heads or whoever's assigned to monitor that needs to do a better job. Because just this week, a comment was made about appeared to be an abandoned vehicle on one street. That parking, it was reported in September, and it was just acknowledged this week. That parking assigned it to parking. Okay, that's nice. And it still hasn't been resolved. So, a 3-month lead time, lag time is just not acceptable. And then another one was, there's always issues, not always, frequent issues with missed recycling pickups, missed trash pickups, etc. And one of the comments just a week or two ago, from whoever it was acknowledged by a city department, it says DPW 3, that if you have an issue, call Pinard Waste. No. That's why we have C-Click Fix. We contact the city, and the city contacts Pinard Waste to pick up recycling. It's not our job. It's your job as a city employee. And that just needs to be better monitored. I mean, a 3-month lead time to get something looked at is unacceptable. Sure. Unacceptable.
Yeah. The C-Click Fix was something I just learned about when I met with
First time I hear it.
Great tool.
Yeah.
First time I hear it.
It's a really great tool.
See, you just log on to the city's website, it says report a problem, you have to log in, you have to create an account, and if you see a pothole, no matter where, you report it. That's it. First time I hear about it.
You can
So
report
then-
all sorts of things. It's also an app. You can download the app on your
Yeah,
phone.
is it My Manchester? MyManchester.com, My Manchester
It's
app?
the Manchester version of it is Manchester,
you know what that is, Tim?
Manchester, New Hampshire Connect.
So the health department put
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
MyManchesterNH.com.
Yeah, it's kind of the
When
same.
they started talking about it or released it, pretty impressive. It was
Yeah.
really good.
And it's kind of the same thing, except it's an app on your phone.
It's a great tool, except it's got to be monitored.
Yeah.
Down in the street forgotten part, it's forgotten on that website too, because you click it, nothing happens.
Yeah, I believe the Manchester version of the C-Click Fix, because it's C-Click Fix is the overall software, and all cities can use it. I believe it's Manchester, New Hampshire Connect, right?
Yeah, it's Manchester NH Connect.
Manchester NH Connect.
It's a smartphone now.
Yeah.
It's different from
It's different, yeah. But yeah, I encourage everybody to start using it because, and I actually heard that from Department of Public Works. They want everyone to really start using it because that helps them. They can't be everywhere all the time. So we can literally be the eyes and ears for Public Works. Unfortunately, if it doesn't get taken care of the way it should, then that's another issue. But I'll talk to you after, and I would like to find out that very specific issues so that I can.
And then just in detailing that, in Nashua, it was in IntelliGov, it's called an SLA, Service Length Agreement. Missing manhole covers, that's taken care of immediately. And unfortunately, there was a fatality in Nashua this year. Pothole, it was 3 days. Overgrown weeds, I think they had 10 days on that one. But my dashboard as a department head, you had flags come up. When it came within 3 days of your SLA, you had a yellow flag. And when it hit the SLA, if it was due that day, because you set that date, you got a red flag. You better take care of it real quick.
What does SLA mean?
Service Length Agreement. But for pothole, you give it 3 days. Missing manhole or catch basin grate, that's immediate, because that's imminent danger.
Sure.
Rattling manhole cover, I think we had that 3 days. Those kind of things. And I'm sure the C-Click Fix has the same background information going with it, but somebody's got to be looking at this stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Excellent.
I think
So
we're a little over time,
Yep.
but thank you for all the questions.
thanks. And Facebook world. Thank you.
Thank you. Take some cookies home.
Yeah, take cookies home and fill your pockets.
Good job.
Hey, thank you.
That's you guys teaming up.